time back, I read a collection of Irish folk and fairy tales. And in the introduction, Philip Glassy says, "Storytelling entertains in the moment and sends us out with a memory worth having." I'm going to repeat that so you can think about it. Storytelling entertains in the moment and sends us out with a memory worth having. Of all the storytellers I get to hear in any given year, the teller that exemplifies that quotation from Philip Glassy the most is Donald Davis. He's our next teller. He has a new book out called How They Linger. It's a collection of stories about people who have made an indelible impression on Donald's life. Please welcome to the stage Donald Davis, the Dean of American Storytelling.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. So, Fran, we used to live in High Point, North Carolina, which is furniture capital. And one day we were driving through town and stopped at a traffic light that was right beside the Lane Cedar Chest Company. And our 4-year-old little boy looked up and says, "Daddy, I smell gerbils." So we got lots of uses for red cedar. When I was a little boy growing up in the mountains of North Carolina, we went to the Methodist church every Sunday, every Sunday, every Sunday, every Sunday, every Sunday. But I never gave up. We got up on Sunday morning and sit down for breakfast, and I would say, "What are we going to do today?" And my dad would say, "Don't you know what day it is?" I'd say, "Yes, it's Sunday. There's no school. What are we going to do?" He would say, "We're going to church." And I would say, "We went last week." And he would say, "We're going to go again because, you know, if we're not there, they won't really have church." I think, okay, let's stay home and give everybody a break. But it never worked that way. Sunday at our house always unrolled the same way. Only on Sunday, my mother would fix pancakes for breakfast. And then after breakfast, my little brother and my daddy and I would start getting ready to go to church while our mother would see if she could totally fix our Sunday dinner, slide it in the refrigerator, so when we got back home after 3 or 4 semesters at church, we'd be able to eat before we flat starved to death. And then we get in the car, and my daddy would drive us into town up to the old 1923 church building, and the first hour was not bad. The first hour was Sunday school. And at Sunday school, if you had a dime for the collection and you could remember one new Bible verse, you got to play the rest of the hour. And then we got out of Sunday school, and I'd meet up with our little brother, and we would say, "Whose turn is it? Whose turn is it to ask the big question? Do we have to stay for big church?" And there was only one answer, my mother: "Yes. Go to the bathroom." I don't need to go to the bathroom. Go anyway. I just went. Go again. I can't. Try. Because in those days, we were only allowed to do 2 things in church: behave. And that did not include running in and out to the bathroom. I knew we could float out of church on Noah's second flood, and we would still never be actually excused to go to the bathroom. We go to church now and we watch little kids. They're wearing trails in the carpet, in and out, back and forth. I think, where are your parents? Being Methodist, I never thought a whole lot about the rapture, but one day it occurred to me that if the rapture happens, I hope it comes while all those children are out there in the bathroom and they come back in and everybody's gone and they miss the whole thing, because instead of behaving, they were in the bathroom. But we knew how to behave. Now we come up in the back of the church. You know there's some lost chapters and some lost books in the Bible that used to be there and just aren't there anymore. And one of those lost chapters is chapter 51 in the book of Genesis. You read the book of Genesis now and it only has 50 chapters in it, but it used to have 51. 51 was the chapter in which Adam assigned all families in unchangeable perpetuity their immovable seats in church. Because you know as well as I do, if you go and sit in the wrong seat, you don't even get credit for being there. And Adam had assigned our family the fourth row from the front on the right-hand side, right next to the big window that had the dead Atkins family's names in it. I can tell you that James Banner Atkins died on December the 19th, 1923, because I read that in that window every Sunday. Now, we'd always come in the same order. They'd bring in my little brother first because they wanted to keep us as far apart as possible. And then my daddy would come in and he would sit there with his left hand on my little brother's knee. Our daddy was too old to be in the Second World War, but for his home-time civil defense duty, he took Red Cross training and then he taught Red Cross emergency first aid classes, which meant that he knew every pressure point in the human body. And with his hand on my little brother's knee, if my little brother even had an untoward thought, our daddy could go, and I'd have a crippled brother for about 3 days. My mama would come in next, and my daddy would sit there with his arm around her, you know, like he loved her. But mostly so when I came in last, he was ready for my shoulder right there. Well, we were sitting there one Sunday. It was about early October, and you know, it was cool in the morning, and then it warmed up as the day went along. And in those days, we did not have air conditioning in church because that would have made it comfortable. And when it started getting hot, Hardy Nolan was ushering, and he came easing down the side because you could pull a little chain, and each of those big windows would open up so the air could come in. And he opened up the dead Atkins window, and hiding outside that window, waiting for a chance, was a heathen yellow jacket. It came in that window and started sneaking around behind me. I was sitting there like a big boy with my arm up over the end of the pew. And that yellow jacket came sneaking up, and it landed right there on that finger, and it stung the Methodist out of me. And I just showed it to my mama, and she went, shh. And I hadn't said anything. I said, it hurt. Shh. Shh. I need to go out. Shh. I'm trying to listen to the sermon. And I had to sit there for the rest of that endless Methodist hour, watching my finger swell up to be 3 times as big as it was born to be and change colors over and over again. And when we got home, the totality of first aid treatment I got was one little drop of spit on my mama's finger stuck in the baking soda box and then held where I got stung. I said, Mama, why did you not let me go outside when I got stung? She said, we don't leave church for frivolous reasons. I said, it wasn't frivolous, it hurt. She said, it would have hurt just as much on the outside as it hurt staying in there. I said, yes, but if I'd been allergic, I could have died. And my mother, who gave birth to me, looked at me and she said, that would have been fine. Because if you had died in church, you might have gone straight to heaven, and that might be your only chance, little mister. And that was the end of it. Well, I kept getting older and older and older, and finally I learned something from the big boys. The big boys told me that when you got to be 13 years old, you got to go sit up in the balcony with the other big boys. And when I turned 13, that very Sunday, I headed to the balcony. My mother said, "Where do you think you're going?" I said, "I'm going up in the balcony because I'm 13 years old and you're tired of me." She said, "What does that have to do with it?" I said, "That's the way it goes in our church. That's what's supposed to happen." And my mother didn't even waste the word no. She just pointed down to the fourth row on the right. And that was the end of that discussion. And that's when I discovered why nobody else sat on the pew with us. My mama was saving it for our future wives and children. Well, that summer, we got a new minister. His name was Mr. Brindall, but my daddy had nicknames for all our ministers. Most of those nicknames I can't tell you. But he called Mr. Brindall Old Push-Up. See, Mr. Brindall had bad vision and new bifocals. And he could see everything right here, and he could see everything way out there, but he couldn't see anything right here. And he wrote out his sermons, and he read them in church. And so we would get right down to sermon time, and he'd pull up the script, and he'd reach up and get hold of the sides of the pulpit in push-up position. Then he'd go down and read a little bit and come up and say it out loud. Go down and read a little bit, come up and say it all the way through, up and down, up and down, up and down. My daddy'd say, "Watch old push-up go, watch him go, watch him go." Well, it was about early December. We were in church, and just about the time the sermon started, there was a little tiny smell like something was burning. An old push-up smell must have been as bad as his sight, because he never smelled it. He just kept going. And in a moment, little wisps of white smoke were coming up along the baseboard below that long row of windows. And right behind us, the Jennings family got up and left. And the smoke kept coming. It got up as high as we were, started spreading out through the congregation. And behind us, the Medfords got up and left. And the smoke kept spreading and spreading and coming on up and coming on up. And in front of us, the Hammets, Dr. Frank and Dr. Doris, they were both doctors. They gathered up their children and they left because they knew they were indispensable. And about that time, my mother leaned down and she said, "Let's go." And I looked at her and I said, "Shh." And she said, "Something's burning." "Shh. We need to listen." "Shh. I'm trying to listen to the sermon." And she gathered up my daddy and my little brother, and they climbed over me and left me in there. I wouldn't have left that place for anything on the face of this earth. Well, by the time the firemen got there, old Push-Up and I were the only two people left in the whole place. Everybody else is gone. Well, here's what they found. Down under the sanctuary, in an old superannuated Sunday school room, there was now a storage room. They were getting out the Christmas decorations. Big old corrugated boxes with everything in it. And from the Sunday school days, there was an old open flame gas heater in there, and somebody lit it up. And they forgot to turn it off. And later they just started pushing boxes back in the door, pushing the boxes in the door, pushing them in the door, closing it up. It was a good thing it was closed up very tightly in there. There was not enough air for it to really burst into flames. It just turned a whole lot of corrugated cardboard black and made a lot of white smoke. So everything was fine till we got home from church. And then when I looked at my mother, I remembered hearing that if you missed your tetanus shot, you could get lockjaw.
What do you act like that for? I've never seen you on act like that. There's 11 talents out of me. Why did you act like that?
I said, You You taught me that we don't leave church for frivolous reasons. She said, it was not frivolous. There was a fire. I said, no, Mama, there was not a real fire. It was just a lot of smoke. She said, yes, but if it had been a real fire, we could have all died. I said, that would have been fine. Because if we had all died, we might have all gone straight to heaven. And that might be our only chance, Mama. Not another word was said about it. The next Sunday came, we headed in the back door of church, and without saying one word to me, my daddy tapped me on the shoulder and pointed to the balcony stairs. And I went up, and they stayed down, and the whole world was happier after that.